In the digital age, almost everything runs on silicon. And more than half of that silicon comes from one island, Taiwan, a democracy barely 40 years old, now holding the pulse of the global economy. Its freedom, once fragile, now reinforced by precision engineering, by circuits no one else can replicate. This is how survival became strategy, how the tools of innovation became a shield. After the end of martial law, Taiwan's leaders faced a new question: how to survive in a world that refused to recognize them. The answer wasn't found in slogans, but in science. Chiang Ching-kuo's final reforms and the leadership of Li Tenghui, a US-educated technocrat from Taipei, shifted the island from ideology to innovation. Education became the new defense policy. Classrooms replaced rallies. Engineers, not generals, became national heroes. The state didn't just open markets, it built laboratories, roads, and power grids that made invention possible. Under Li's quiet pragmatism, Taiwan stopped waiting for recognition and began to design its own relevance. And that design began with a blueprint. In 1973, under Chiang Ching-kuo's direction, Taiwan's blueprint for technological independence took physical form as the Industrial Technology Research Institute, or ITRI. It was not glamorous, just fluorescent lights, oscilloscopes, and ambition. But it was visionary. The government wasn't chasing profits. It was investing in national resilience. ITRI seeded a generation of engineers, many trained overseas, then drawn back home, to build an industry no one thought Taiwan could lead. A decade later, Hsinchu Science Park rose from farmland, a deliberately designed ecosystem of factories, universities, and startups. It was a bold move, timed just right. The vision had outlived its architects and begun to lead the island on its own. While some would later call it luck, Taiwan had engineered its own opportunity. The world barely noticed, but inside those clean rooms, the future was already being etched, nanometer by nanometer. In 1987, one man arrived who would alter Taiwan's fate. Morris Chang, a veteran of Texas Instruments. He brought with him an idea: that Taiwan could manufacture chips for the entire world. No flashy consumer brand, just pure precision. The government backed him. Engineers returned from abroad. Together, they built TSMC, the world's first dedicated semiconductor foundry. It was a quiet revolution. Within decades, TSMC was fabricating chips with features just nanometers wide, some narrower than a strand of DNA. They powered everything, from smartphones to fighter jets. The island, once known for cheap labor, now made what no one else could. By the 2000s, every server farm, satellite, and smartphone relied on silicon traced back to Taiwan. Globalization had made the island essential and irreplaceable. The same seas that once isolated it now connected it to every power on Earth. Yet dependence is a double-edged circuit. For every nation that relied on Taiwan's chips, one question lingered: what happens if the island stops producing? The answer was unthinkable, and that is why no one could look away. Strategists began to call it the Silicon Shield. The idea that the world's reliance on TSMC would deter war, that economic self-interest, could protect democracy better than any army. It was both ingenious and fragile, a shield built not of steel, but of supply chains. A single missile, a single blockade, could cripple the world's technology, and Taiwan with it. Power and peril fused together on a wafer a fraction of a millimeter thick. But dependence cuts both ways. In recent years, fears of disruption have led Taiwan's allies, especially the United States, to rethink their own exposure. Under political pressure, TSMC agreed to build a major fabrication plant in Arizona. Some hailed it as a triumph of cooperation. Others, a quiet erosion of Taiwan's leverage. Because if the world no longer needs Taiwan's chips, will it still be willing to defend them? That question still hangs in the air. But beyond strategy, something deeper had taken shape. Taiwan's engineers, scientists, and teachers had given the island a new kind of legitimacy, built not on recognition, but on contribution. The world might still debate its status, but it could no longer deny its importance. In classrooms and labs, young Taiwanese dreamed not of exile or return, but of discovery, sovereignty through excellence, freedom through innovation. The silicon that powers the modern world was born from a place once silenced. Out of fear came precision. Out of isolation, interconnection. Taiwan built more than chips. It built trust. It built necessity. And in that necessity, safety. But a shield by nature invites the question: what happens when it's tested? Next time, the storm gathers. The world looks to Taiwan, not as a factory, but as a fault line.